If you've been following Elon Musk's recent interviews, you know he talks about everything from aliens and AI to the end of civilization. But when you piece it all together, you don't just get a bunch of random thoughts. You get a surprisingly cohesive and, yeah, often controversial blueprint for the future. So in this explainer, we're going to connect the dots on that very blueprint. We're starting with this quote because, honestly, it's the key to his whole worldview. Musk seems to believe that the path to saving humanity is just full of these weird ironies, and it leads to a future that almost nobody sees coming. One where the endgame of capitalism, well, it starts to look a whole lot like a communist utopia. So, here's our mission today, to connect those dots. First, we'll lay out Musk's diagnosis of what he sees as humanity's biggest threats, and then we'll dive into his technological prescription for saving us all. Look, this isn't about whether you agree with him or not. It's about understanding the worldview that's driving some of the biggest, most ambitious engineering projects in human history. All right, so let's start big. I mean, really big. Before you can even think about solving problems, you have to get a handle on the fundamentals of the human condition. And for Musk, that journey starts with some of our oldest and, frankly, our most violent instincts. His take on this is pretty stark. He argues that our capacity for violence isn't some political failure. It's literally hardwired into us. He points to the constant, brutal violence you see in chimpanzee societies and says, hey, that's a raw look at our own limbic system. The only real difference, from his perspective, is that our big brains give us a chance to override those base instincts, a chance that, let's be honest, we often waste. And this whole idea, this instinct we have for self-destruction, it naturally leads him to another fundamental question he seems kind of obsessed with, the Fermi paradox. You know the one. If the universe is so ridiculously huge, then where is everybody? Now, his answer here is really interesting. It's not just, nope, haven't seen any aliens. He finds the cosmic silence genuinely concerning, and you have to ask why. Well, because to him, it implies that maybe civilizations just don't last very long. This isn't just some academic curiosity for him. It's a ticking clock that adds a profound sense of urgency to everything he's trying to build. Okay, so we've got this built-in risk of war, and it looks like we might be all alone out here in the cosmos. So what are the immediate threats? What could wipe us out before we even get a shot at expanding? This is where his diagnosis gets really specific, and for a lot of people, pretty counterintuitive. Forget everything you've ever heard about overpopulation. Musk argues, pretty forcefully, that the single greatest danger we face as a civilization is underpopulation. He's convinced that we are just not having enough kids, and that a demographic cliff is coming way faster than anyone seems to realize. Think about it. For most of our lives, the story has been all about an exploding population, right? That we're running out of space and resources. Musk's argument is that this narrative is dangerously out of date. He points out that birth rates in most developed countries have been below replacement levels for almost 50 years. The only reason we haven't felt the full effect yet, well, it's because we're all living longer. The implication is an economic nightmare, an inverted pyramid with way too few young people to support an aging society and drive new ideas. And if you want a concrete example, he almost always brings up Japan. Their population shrank by more than 500,000 people in just 1 year. He doesn't see that as some weird anomaly. He sees it as a preview, a warning shot for what's coming for the rest of the developed world. A future without enough workers, consumers, or innovators to keep society going. Okay, so beyond the demographic problem, he also identifies what he calls an ideological threat, the woke mind virus. So what does he mean by that? Well, according to him, it's an ideology that's fundamentally against merit, against science, and against free speech. He argues that it forces people, and even AI systems, to say things that are factually untrue for social or political reasons. From his point of view, that's a huge danger, because it's replacing the search for objective truth with a rigid political orthodoxy.
All right, so that's the diagnosis. Not enough people and a destructive ideology spreading. So what's the cure? What's the plan? Well, if you know anything about Elon Musk, you can probably guess the answer, right? It's all about technology.
And it's not just technology in some vague sense. He has a very specific 3-part plan. First up, you've got artificial intelligence to basically amplify our own brain power and solve problems we can't crack today. Second, you've got robotics to create a new workforce that fills the gap from that population decline. And third, the big one, space exploration. That's the ultimate insurance policy, the backup drive for consciousness itself. Now, when it comes to AI, he has one massive core principle for safety. It has to be truthful. He's basically saying the most dangerous thing you can do is program an AI to lie, like telling it to create historically inaccurate images to fit an ideology. For him, a maximally truth-seeking AI, one that's just grounded in physics and logic, well, that's the safest AI you can possibly build. And this isn't just sci-fi speculation for him. He connects it directly to huge problems we have right now. I mean, think about the national debt. His argument is that with a shrinking workforce, there's no way the economy can grow fast enough to get out of that hole. You can't just cut your way out of it. He says the only way is up, a radical economic boom, driven by the incredible productivity that AI and robotics could unlock. Which, of course, brings us back to space. See, for him, going to Mars isn't just some cool adventure. It's an emergency procedure. It's a race against time. That cosmic silence we talked about, that lack of aliens, to him it suggests that the window of opportunity a civilization has to become multiplanetary might be incredibly, incredibly brief. We have to go now, because we have no idea how long that window will even stay open. Okay, so let's put all these pieces together. Let's say it actually works. We solve the population problem with robots, we secure our future out in space. What kind of world does that leave us with? This is where we get to Musk's ultimate vision. And this is where we find that central, fascinating irony we talked about at the very beginning. He has a name for it: sustainable abundance. Just try to picture it for a second. A world where AI and humanoid robots can do pretty much any job a human can, only better. In a future like that, scarcity is basically gone. Everyone has access to all the goods and services they need, and because it's all powered by sustainable energy, we do it without destroying the planet. And here it is. This is the punchline. This is the great paradox he himself loves to point out. You use the most hardcore tools of capitalism: fierce competition, relentless innovation, the whole shebang, and where do you end up? You end up in a world of total abundance where nobody actually has to work. It's what he calls the communist utopia, achieved through purely capitalist means. And right there, you can see why he says fate is an irony maximizer. And that perfect future? It leaves us with one last massive question, maybe the most important one of all. If technology solves for our survival and gets rid of scarcity, it hands humanity a brand new existential problem. If you don't have to work to live, what gives your life meaning? What do we even do with ourselves? That's the one question he admits he doesn't have an answer to. And maybe, just maybe, nobody does, yet.